Welcome to Houston Newsmakers Extra. I'm talking with Dr. Chris Funk, the author of Drought, Flood, Fire, How Climate Change Contributes to Catastrophes. We've been talking about a number of things, including the tropics. I want to touch base with you about that because we went through Hurricane Harvey here. And those of us in this area need not be told about the magnitude of storms and how they have increased. What have you been able to glean from your studies about how the tropical systems seem to be getting stronger each and every year?
Yeah. Well, so, a lot of my work focuses on predicting droughts, in Eastern and Southern Africa. And, to do that well, we've learned that we really have to pay attention to where climate change is making the Pacific and the Indian Oceans exceptionally warm. And, in the last 5 years, we've seen just a sequence of extreme droughts and extremely rainy seasons that have been associated with, really warm ocean temperatures in the Eastern Pacific, really warm temperatures in the Western Pacific, really warm temperatures in the Western Indian Ocean. And the good thing is that, with the latest generation of climate models, we can use those insights to make very long lead forecasts. So, for example, a year ago, we started predicting that there were going to be back-to-back droughts in Ethiopia. And then that happened. And, at least we were ready for that to happen. Next week, I'm going to be presenting remotely at a conference of more than 50 Southern African climate scientists. And I'm going to be talking to them about getting ready now for the next time that there's an extremely warm pool of sea surface temperatures in the Eastern Pacific. So, understanding how climate change is influencing these extreme events gives us the opportunity to anticipate them. And it makes climate change much, much more manageable. And that's part of our mission here at the center, is to develop the tools and techniques to do that.
So does that include also trying to to forecast droughts in this country as well? I know you focused on other continents. How about the United States?
Oh yeah. So this is probably part of what influenced my work is that the same drivers that produce drought in Eastern Africa also tend to produce drought here, and so both here if we think it's bad this summer, I think it's going to be worse next summer because we're looking at probably another dry winter. And in East Africa, we're looking at another probably dry year as well. And so, which happens a lot when we have La Niñas, and those are being amplified. La Niña is when it's warm in the West Pacific, and that's being amplified by climate change. So, both what's happening in the Western U.S. and Eastern Africa.
That's not very comforting when you're already talking about next year being even worse than it is this year.
Yeah, it's not. No, it's not very comforting.
So you've been writing, I know one of the chapters is Do-It-Yourself Climate Change Science. I'm wondering, as you write these chapters and you give this information for people to have access to, those people who put our laws into effect, how much would you hope that they would be able to take this book and be able to, learn something from it in how they try to put laws into place? You talked about you didn't write this for political reasons, but clearly politicians who make laws about our climate could be able to get something out of this.
Yeah. I mean, it seemed to me that part of the political problem was this, idea of whether you believe climate scientists or not. So it's kind of like a matter of faith. And that's not really how science works, and there's a lot of aspects of climate change that everybody can understand. And so I tried to, condense what I thought were the most important of those and explain them. And, it's not easy reading, I mean, my father-in-law is working his way through it, and, he's an artist, but he's making his way, and it's accessible, but it takes some work. So I think that's important to put this understanding out into the general populace so that we can, understand what's happening.
I like your final chapter. It says, we can afford to wear a white hat. What do you mean by that?
So, I like I try to be actively good. There's sort of, you could be good by not doing anything wrong. I'm not very good at that kind of good. But I think that, we can help each other a lot. And we're doing this all the time. The optimistic part of that chapter, in like the community that I'm part of, we're safeguarding hundreds of millions of lives from famine right now. I know that we can, do good and wear the white hat. And if you look at the costs of climate change, they're over $400 billion a year. And dealing with climate change might be $850 billion a year. And so the gap between, the impacts and what it costs to deal with the problem is shrinking. And our planet, is incredibly wealthy. We're wealthier than we've ever been. We have educated people on every continent. We have computers. I mean, there's so much that we can do if we decide that we want to do that.
Do you think people are surprised when they realize how fragile our planet is? When I talked about how this thin layer of atmosphere, where we live, how surprising is it for people when they read that and they figure out, okay, this really is a fragile environment we're living in?
Yeah, because we walk out, our front door and we look up at the sky and it seems infinite. And, it's a rational assumption to think about the atmosphere as a really big place. But, because, the density decreases exponentially, it thins out very, very quickly. And so it's, only about 10 miles thick and there's just not that much of it.
Well, it's a good reason to read your book to find out more about it. Drought, Flood, Fire, How Climate Change Contributes to Catastrophes. Dr. Chris Funk, thank you for your time, and we hope that you sell a lot of these so people can be a lot more educated about our climate. Thank you again.
Well, thanks a lot, and it's been great talking with you.
My pleasure as well. Houston Newsmakers Extra, share this with everybody you know.